This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, powered by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino and presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, and that is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores there, just PROANT. In this episode of Disguise Coverage that always gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, we are going to be diving into the 2025 NFL Combine, the positions of need / interest for the Buffalo Bills, the movers and shakers at these positions of need / we're barely a minute in, and I got 2 flubs already. I'm so disappointed in myself. At these positions of need / interest for the Bills. We'll be talking about who can really kind of up their draft stock, who might impact the positional rankings, change some things in the first round, day 1, day 2, some sleeper conversation. As always, for those of you joining us live, your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns are more than welcomed with us here on the show. And when I say us and when I say we, that is because I am not alone on this episode. Joining me for another record-setting appearance. And every time I do this, I always tell myself to count, and I never do. And I say this exact thing every time he's been on, and I hate myself for it. But nonetheless, here we are. Welcome to the show for another record-setting appearance, Mr. JP Acosta of SB Nation. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking the time. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you for having me. It feels kind of like when, old wrestlers like Dusty Rhodes would make the tours in like the 80s. Like we're just making stops, baby. And I love this stop. This feels like, we got to keep the streak going. This is real. We're entering Undertaker territory, Undertaker WrestleMania territory. We got to keep it going. There's no Brock Lesnar here.
I like it. I like that a lot. As soon as you mentioned the territory thing and you mentioned Dusty Rhodes, I was like, so this is like, if you're Dusty, this is your like Atlanta, Georgia stop.
Well, this is the Georgia stop. This is the home field.
I love that.
We
like
got the crowd on our back.
I like it. Yeah, everybody's feeling, everybody's pumped. Everybody hates Ric Flair. They're all about Dusty. I like it. I like it a lot. To kind of prime us for this episode, this conversation, you love the draft. You went to the Senior Bowl. Alas, I did not this year, and I'm still very sad about it and still very upset. I saw you and Taylor doing some stuff, Taylor Kyles, and I was just like, oh, so even more upset that I'm not at the draft this year. But you got some fun stuff for it coming out in tomorrow and in the coming days. And you're talking college ball all the time, along with your NFL stuff throughout the year. High level, this draft class, right? Your initial thoughts, strengths, weaknesses, when you think about it, what comes to your mind, anything and everything from a high level perspective. When you think about how the 2025 NFL draft class is starting to shape up or has shaped up, where does your mind go? Where are your first thoughts and why?
So one of my things that I think and I say we royally, like the royal we, when you talk about the NFL draft, is we determine how good a draft class is based on how good the quarterbacks are. And while I don't think the quarterbacks are great from top to bottom in this class, I actually think this class is pretty fun. I don't think there are a lot of superstars, like instant, like league-altering guys, but you're going to get a lot of starters, a lot of quality guys at every position, especially in positions that have been deemed to not matter, or the positions that don't have as much value, like running back, like defensive tackle, like tight end, like interior offensive linemen. We're seeing a lot of guys who were tackles at college level coming in and being guards at the next level. You're seeing guards move to center. You got a guy like Marcus Bowe from Purdue who plays everything, quite literally. So I think this class is really fun. I actually really like this defensive line and edge class. If you guys didn't know, I'm a big defensive line, linebacker, edge class guy. I actually kind of like the group in terms of variety and the body types and how they win. So I'm excited to talk about it. I'm really excited about this class.
Yeah, me too. I like some of the pieces on the defensive side of the ball. I like some of the day 1 and day 2 safeties for as deep I am as into that position as now. Yeah, several of the edges, several of the interior defensive linemen. I feel like there's good value in a lot of the spots of need for the Bills. There's some fun dudes, again, at like less valued positions like running back, which it's just, I don't know if you're sitting there in day 2 and you might be able to get like wherever Judkins and like Travion are going to go or whatever. And then Genty being a legit like blue chip top tier dude. Again, we've had another one like we did Bijan a couple years ago. Like running back is fun. Like there's some linemen who I really like, but the depth there. I mean, I don't know, even just like Loveland and Warren, what they are at tight end, like at the top of the class, but some of the flexibility you get throughout there. Yeah. And I think all of that is juxtaposed with, for me, and I know you and I were talking about this a bit offline, like I think all of the funness at all these positions is kind of juxtaposed with how much I don't care about the quarterbacks. And it's not even just from like a Bills perspective. Like I'm my Miami Hurricanes are my team. I was pumped as hell when Cam Ward went there. I was pumped as hell for the entirety of the season, even when the defense couldn't play any defense whatsoever and everything was on Cam and the offense. But yeah, the quarterbacks just don't do. Like, I don't care who QB1 is. Like, they just don't do a lot for me, but I think you could have some success there. I think I'm here for all the pageantry and the circus around Shadur and like his dad and what that means. And like everybody already being like, oh, he's not going to do anything at the combine. Who does he think he is? And I'm like, yes, like I'm here for all of it. I'm here for whoever he goes to and how scrutinized everything it is, how confident he is in himself, how much like everybody kind of hates him, but everybody kind of loves him. All the drama around the quarterback grouping, but a lot of it for me isn't like, oh yeah, these guys are going to be super sweet. It's just like, meh.
Yeah, it's just like these guys will probably be fun. I think Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders will both turn out to probably be like quality starters at the NFL level. But outside of that, good luck. I've said before, if you need a quarterback, no, you don't. You might as well you just might as well punt on this class going to 2026, knowing you need a quarterback in a class that might be a little better. But outside of the quarterback class, there are some really, really fun and really unique prospects. Like Tyler Warren is incredible. Like that dude is amazing. And I think we should talk about him and Loveland and this tight end class. Talk about the interior defensive lineman class, which is absolutely bonkers this year. There are legitimately incredible defensive tackles in so many different body types entering this draft. And I think it's going to make for a lot of really fun content along the offensive and defensive lines at positions where it's a little harder to scout. It's a little for people who don't do this every day. It's a little harder to say like, yeah, I think this guy's going to be incredible on the defensive line, even though he doesn't get a lot of sacks or the production isn't there. The stuff that you can't really measure or stuff you can't quantify has to come to the front. And I also think that this class is a great indicator of the decision between how you evaluate players for what they can do for you now versus what they can become. And I think it's a perfect class, a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and not just because of it being a position of need for the Bills, like the defensive line, especially on the interior, is so fun. Like the conversation piece, and I don't want to spoil too much as like we start to get into things, but yeah, just what the top. I mean, Mason Graham, I feel like is in a tier of like his own, but then like tier 2 and tier 3 is going to look different, like across 10 different evaluators. You might get 10 different tier 2 and tier 3s. And that's not even getting into like the actual NFL application of it, where it's going to be, are you looking for more of a one tech? Are you looking for more of a 3? You playing an odd front? Or are you playing an even? Are you like a blitzing team? Or are you a 4 down, 1 gap penetrating type of team? Like how much gap and a half do you want? How much 2, so on and so forth. Based off of that, you could get someone who might be like, defensive tackle 8, but no, for this team, he's defensive tackle 3 because of the fit. And then all of that kind of chain reaction domino placing is so fun. And then all of that is within kind of the backdrop and the landscape of this episode in the combine, where you get these dudes who have the opportunity to really plant their flag at this position and make a name for themselves. And you get, I know a lot of NFL teams and scouts kind of do what I do, and I know some other people do, like going into the combine, where if someone balls out, it makes you go, do I need to go back and watch him again? Because, man, did I miss something? Okay, let me go back and throw a second pair of eyes. Or is somebody you're like, I think this guy's going to test really well, and they do, and you give your stamp of approval even harder, and they kind of confirm what you already had, and that has real implications for teams. And to get the opportunity to see that, it's such a fun position group. Like for me, it really is like the defensive line, especially on the interior. Like, I'm so excited to watch them because there's not like, okay, what group is this? All right, cool. I can go do the dishes or I can go get some food and do whatever. Like, no, you need to be locked into the TV because there's so many guys that just from a fun perspective, like, I want to see how Kenneth Grant moves and like all, but the actual implications coming from it, man, I think like matters a lot within the scope of this and within this conversation. I think, JP, let's start with that. Let's start with the interior defensive line at the 2025 NFL Combine. For those of you joining us and playing with us live at home, as we go through the positions of need for the Bills, any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, beliefs, who you're watching for, what you're watching for, the whys and the hows behind it, all of that, as always, feel free to put it up into the chat. I will grab anything and everything as much as humanly and physically possible. As always, super chats get a priority because I respect the monetary donation and because the colors distract me from my notes and anything else that I may be doing. I will kind of go through each of the position groups we'll talk about as we go through them and the criteria for what we will be doing with them. So for interior defensive line, what JP and I are going to be focusing on here are which day one or day two interior defensive linemen can help themselves the most at the 2025 Combine. The reason I've kind of framed it like this, and I'll say it as we go through each position, based on the Bills' needs right now, how the roster looks, if the draft was happening tomorrow, where they would have to go, what they would have to address. So that's why I'm focusing on day 1 and 2, because as of right now, you could see all three of the Bills' first 3 picks be defensive line driven. But we're starting with the interior defensive line because it's really fun. So JP, the floor is yours. Which day 1 or day 2 interior defensive linemen, singular or plural, can help themselves the most at the 2025 NFL Combine?
So we talked a lot about how this interior defensive line class has a whole bunch of dudes. I got a whole bunch of dudes for this. So buckle up.
Like it.
I'm going to stay away from the obvious of Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, because we know those guys are good. They are lock first rounders. They should be going early. Kenneth Grant's probably going to weigh in at like 340, and I've heard he's going to try and run in the 4.8s, which is
oh my God, I love that.
Insane.
Is he real quick? Is he your defensive tackle too, Kenneth Grant?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Grant's my defensive tackle 2. My actual defensive tackle 3 is a guy that I think would be perfect for the Bills, and that's Oregon's Derek Harmon.
Nice.
And Harmon, when you look at him play and look and watch how he plays, his upper body is so freaking strong. Like, he is such a big, long, tall defensive lineman, but also plays with good pad level. So he's always an instant contributor in the run game. We're going to get to another guy who I think can be an instant contributor in the run game, especially in the Bills' defense. But I think Harmon offers a little bit more pass rush upside. He has a nice little swim move, a little arm over that I think he displays late in pass rushes, but he can also fire it off a little early. Where I want to see him win is I want to see if he has enough lateral quickness to be a guy that can steal gaps, or is he more of a, when we talk about 3-4-1 techs or 4-3-1 techs versus 3-4 noses or like 5 techs. When you think about an even front, which is the 4-3 that we normally think about the way the Bills play, those are more, we're going to get into one gap and we're going to get vertical push. I want to see if Harmon can create that vertical push with some lateral quickness, some explosiveness in his lower body, or is he more of a 3-4? Is he going to be more of a gap control guy? But another guy that I think is going to really stand out is Ohio State's Tyleik Williams. And Williams is a really nice fit for the Bills when you think about how light the Bills are up front and how they need a one tech. They need a nose tackle.
Yes.
Badly, because Ed Oliver is amazing. Ed Oliver's maybe 290 pounds. Like he cannot keep taking all the hits in the run game. But Tyleik Williams, while he doesn't offer a lot of pass rush upside, I think he is so strong as a run defender. He uses that dead leg technique where he's getting doubled and he'll drop his leg and slip under. I think he does that really well. He can just immediately bench press guys in the run game. He'll throw dudes around. I think he is a perfect even front one technique nose tackle. I don't think he offers very much pass rush upside, but I think that he would make a really good fit for Buffalo and what they do up front. I also think a guy like Alfred Collins from Texas is also in that mold of, oh my God, watch him defend the run and go, yeah, I want that for this team, especially with the way that the Bills can manufacture pressure. Because Ed Oliver is so great, on the interior at manufacturing pressure for himself and how the edges can kind of collapse the pocket, you don't really need a guy who can create as much pass rush upside at your one tech because you can rotate those guys in. If you can get a guy that can help your defense place teams in 2nd and 12 without sacrificing numbers on the back end, that's where I think the Bills need to go. So getting a guy like Alfred Collins from Texas is going to be really huge. I want to see how he moves because he didn't do the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl circuit because he was in the Final Four of the College Football Playoff, which is going to be a big theme even for Tyreek Williams. He played a national title, didn't do the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl circuit. So we're going to get a lot of those guys. I think I have a lot of questions on, especially up front. But I think those are a few guys that I really am intrigued in when it comes to glove in hand fits for what the Bills want to do. As for other guys that I think would actually be kind of fun, I'm kind of basing this off of the Bills haven't had a defensive tackle as big as Jordan Phillips in a while. So now I'm going to go, you know what? Jordan Phillips was fun. Let's go try and find Jordan Phillips again. And luckily, there are 2 of them in this class. Deion Walker is 6'6", 350 pounds. That is a massive human being. Before the season, I had him ranked as my number 2 prospect. I think he had a really, really bad season. I think his pad level was out of whack. And he also was kind of built a little weird. He's got a thinner lower body, which, and then combined with the pad level doesn't make him as much of a force in the run game as you expect. But he's got surprising lateral quickness for a guy his size. He's got some explosiveness as a pass rusher. You'll see him bust out spin moves, and I think that'd be awesome to see in Buffalo. But I think he's a guy that I think needs a big combine performance, and coming in and being 6'7", 350 is going to immediately get a lot of eyes on him, as is Cam Jackson from Florida, who I think was a little better than Deion Walker at the Senior Bowl. I think he was more consistent in the run game and passing game, but he's also in that same mold of he's massive. You're not going to be able to move him in the run game. I think the pass rush is still coming along. It's not quite the same as Walker, but I think he's a little better of a run defender. But if you just want a mass of humanity in the middle as a one technique, it would be the funniest. It'd be the funniest change of defensive tackles in the NFL, going from like 6'3", 290 Ed Oliver to 6'7", 350 Deion Walker or Cam Jackson, and it's going, oh, like these guys play the same position. So I think those are the guys that I really think when it comes to the Bills could really stand out in their eyes in terms of just being able to help defend the run up front.
Man, I'm in a very similar boat. Like, so everything for me, again, as far as kind of just framing that question, that thought of like the day 1 or day 2 interior defensive linemen that can help themselves the most. And then again, tying it like to the Bills, for me, it's really those tier 2 and tier 3 guys, a lot of them that you mentioned already, and who can solidify themselves from I think Mason Graham, and I don't think this is unique to me, but Mason Graham is like interior defensive lineman, defensive tackle, however you want to verbalize it. One of the best prospects in this class. I really think like 2 through like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 isn't necessarily up for grabs, but there's a lot of like, you ask 10 people, they might like 3 of them might all have the same guy at number 2, but then several of them could have that number 2 guy as number 5, or maybe number 4, or maybe number 6, like based on what they value, what they're looking for. And then again, the team fits and everything aside from that. So much of it, and I'm not going to speak on it too much, but so much of it starts for me with Kenneth Grant, just like the juice that he has on tape at that size. He plays a little high for me at times in a frustrating way, because if he could just play a little lower consistently, just like, my God, like what do you do with him as a player? But then also like, I forget about that because he's 340 plus and how he moves. Like, and it's not like I'm remembering the big mountain of a defensive tackle from Baylor a couple years ago who went to the Browns. Vaki?
Oh, it was Siaki Ika.
Thank you, Siaki Ika. Thank you. I don't know. Vaki's not a person. I was close. I was in the same realm. I saw the weight, and he moved so fluidly, but he was light on his feet in a good way, but also a bad way, where he could not
anchor in the run game.
bang. He did not have like the sandpaper in his lower half to just sit and drop the knee or anchor or hold. Grant has that while also being like explosive and can move. And he's not going to give you a ton of like pass rush moves or juice, but he does have a swim. He has quickness, but he can just push the pocket and hold up against the run. And yeah, man, if he runs 4.8, or imagine he like somehow gets to a high 4.7 at 340 plus, I already think like the change of direction drills, he's going to excel. He's a dancing bear out there, but who can also like hold his weight and anchor down. And he, for me, I think has the chance to really jump the most as a person who could just straight up solidify himself as interior defensive lineman number 2, but also push himself, I don't know, maybe into like the top 15. Maybe he like gets close around there and it's less like, 20 to 25 and it's more 20 to 15, somewhere in that range. And then where it really gets fun for me, and again, you mentioned a lot of these guys, like defensive tackle 3, you go, and I'm not using this as gospel, but I use it as kind of part of like the conversation piece that's fun. If you go to like a lot of the sites or a lot of different people who are covering it, like some people have like Derek Harmon as like defensive tackle 3 or 2. Some people have him as like defensive tackle 6 or 7 or 8. And it's all different depending on where you look at. I'm in on Harmon for a lot of the reasons you already mentioned. I don't want to have to drill down too much on it. Tyleik Williams is a big one for me because of the size and then the athleticism that he can play with. I do think from an on-tape Ohio State perspective, right now he is more of like a 2-down player and a plugger, but he offers a lot of value as that 2-down plugger. I was watching this tape.
And Ohio State's defense changed drastically after the Oregon game. You see as much of the 3 high stuff that they played. They changed from more of a 1 gap to a 2 gapping style of defense. And Tyleik Williams was basically the entire interior of that defensive line. And when you watch him against Oregon the second time, you watch the Michigan game, like he is the Iowa game, even like that was early in the season, but
yes,
he was kicking ass up front in the run game. So if you want to look for a guy, I think he's going to be more of a day 2 guy because he is, like you said, he is a bit more of a early down specialist, but there's a lot of value in that. When you think of teams like the Eagles who drafted Jordan Davis early, who exclusively plays on 2 downs, but if you can get your team, if you can get your opponent in the 2nd and 13 or 3rd and 13 more often, that brings a lot of value.
Yeah. And even with like how much of a plugger he is and a force inside, I think he plays a bit high, like high to the point of not like high with lean, like almost more like upright, but he's still just wrenching guys back. You know, you mentioned the change after that Oregon game, and I didn't want to speak on this game because it came before that, but then you mentioned it. The Iowa game is the one that really, he had 2 reps, one early on against their left guard, where he just drives him into the backfield, wrenches him over, and then Caleb Johnson comes on the inside, and he's like, all right, cool, get out of my way, and he makes the tackle. Then he's got one, it's maybe like 10 minutes left in the 4th quarter. He gets double teamed by the left tackle and the left guard. And he drops the knee and then comes back up and shakes them both and drops them both. Like, so he occupies and holds his ground against the double team and then puts them both on the ground by chucking them / essentially like clubbing them, like almost like a hump move type of deal. And then he gets into the backfield and someone else shot the gap and made the tackle. But he got in there and I was just like, woof. And
he might be the strongest defensive tackle in this class.
He's got some legit power.
Like you said, he can get stood up, but he's not going to move.
Yes.
That's upper body strength.
Yes.
Like he is bench, like legitimately bench pressing guys.
Yes. And when you're still winning and you're out leveraged, and when you are, you know, the proverbial like low man wins, when you can still win all the time, even if you're the high man, like good Lord. And then imagine if they can just, hey, we're going to get you a little more flexible. We're going to get you to play with a little more leverage. Maybe that can come. But even if not, that plugger element, I think, especially for a team like the Bills, who now this is kind of in the backdrop of all of it, even for the guys who are more like run defense based, they do like versatility to the point of like still being able to provide some pass rush pop. So can you show enough from a testing perspective, right, to be like, okay, you know, like change a direction, or what's your 20-yard, what's your shuttle runs, what's your 10-yard split? Can you show that you have enough juice to just get upfield a little bit and we can justify, taking you there in the second? Or does he do so good? Does he throw himself in there in the back end of the first to some other team, or early second where he's out of reach of the Bills at their second round pick? Either way, that type of role, like a true one tech, it's part of the reason why, my ideal free agent for the Bills this year on the interior is DJ Jones. Plugger, athletic, great at block deconstruction and recognition. I don't think he'll cost too much. He's like the most realistic splash guy. But someone else who I really love, he's my number 2 guy behind Jones, is Roy Lopez from the Cardinals. Like plugger who played nose, but can play some one tech, but he has enough burst and juice to get upfield and still pressure the quarterback. He can defeat and recognize blocking schemes and that. Like, can you get enough of that out of Tyreek, who's around this? Well, he's taller, but around that same size. But you get this top tier plugging ability. Can you get enough juice with that from a projection standpoint based on what he does at the combine? Like if I don't think he's going to show out completely, because I think some of the upright nature to his game is tied to just how he's physically constructed. Like I don't see him as this guy that's going to light the world on fire, but if he could show enough straight line speed to make you think, you know what, this guy could compress the pocket a bit, or he could get upfield because he can play the run. He's one that does a lot for me. And then I think about, what does Darius Alexander do? What does TJ Sanders do? Kind of one of the smaller one tech penetrating guys, but do they show enough from an athleticism standpoint? Because they both got some fun tape. And Alexander, I know, showed out in the kind of the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl circuit with what he did this year. Like, can you get enough from either of them? Does one of them jump up into the top 5 conversation, or does someone value more of that penetration aspect and the speed and the size, physicality, like whatever you're looking for? I think that literally the top 8, I'll just say 10 is the ballpark. I feel like the top 10 interior defensive linemen are fun, and you could see 10 go between round 1 and 2, definitely early 3, but who goes where is obviously dependent on fit. But I think the Senior Bowl, the combine could go a long way towards letting guys plant their flag as this guy's 2, this guy's 3, this guy's 4, and there's a lot of possibility. I think this group is big for the Bills, but also just from a fun perspective, I feel like it's must watch at the combine.
Yeah, I think even if you go to day 3 at deep to tackle, one of my guys I think is going to get drafted late, but is going to have an impact on a team early is Jay Toya from UCLA. When you watch the other guys like Carson Schlesinger, Olufemi Oladejo, who we might get to later on, I kept going who is number 93? Because he's constantly making plays. Because I think when you're talking about guys who can stack and shed and be an impactful run defender, I think Toya can be one of those guys on day 3 that really makes his stock kind of boost up after the combine. I think he was supposed to do Shrine Bowl but got hurt. If he's healthy enough to go at the combine, I think I would really like to see how he moves. But he's another one of those guys that I really, really would like to be a run-stopping nose tackle late in the draft.
There's so much. I'm already just kind of thinking the Bills have such an archetype at edge and at defensive tackle that, and it's hard to argue to a degree because it's worked for the most part. But so much of it just pisses me off. Austin Johnson, I think, is a really good example recently, right? Played at the Giants, was a one tech. Goes to the Chargers, changes his body type a little bit, playing in an odd front. But this guy was a one tech. They signed him this past offseason, and I was sweet. There's your backup one tech. Fine, is the number 4 dude in a rotation. Here we go. And then I'm assuming they had him slim down a bunch, and he's playing 3 tech and 1 tech. And so your starters are Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. And then your 3 and your 4 are Dwayne Carter and Austin Johnson. And neither of them can hold their own up front. They're both getting just blown off the ball, displaced like crazy. They're each trying to play 1 tech in addition to 3. I mean, they're not playing, neither of them's playing 3 great, but neither of them can play 1 because they're maybe a little over 300 pounds, somewhere in that range. They're not handling the doubles. They just need a plugger. And I know you don't want to pigeonhole yourself to the point of, well, this guy's only a 2-down player, so if we put him in, we're a minus against the pass. But for a team like the Bills, who are small at the second level and play a crap ton of nickel, I'm okay with that. Give me somebody that keeps your second level clean. Let Terrell Bernard hunt. Let Matt Milano hunt. Let Taron Johnson hunt. Keep dudes clean. Use your 4 down front and play light boxes and nickel and not have to commit numbers to the box because you have a big plugger up front. And if he can just compress the pocket a little bit, I'd take that. Edge is a whole nother conversation, which we'll speak about in the next segment, but they have just held strong to their archetypes up front. And again, I don't think it's inherently bad, not even just for them, but philosophically, right? I get the notion of you don't want somebody with all their sliders turned up in one direction and turned down in the other. Like, I get that, but they've just run into some of the same problems year over year. And this past year, defensively, so many, if not most or all of their problems, like no exaggeration here, stemmed from they didn't have dudes in the spine who could hold up against the run. You're getting blown off the ball left and right. You have to commit numbers to the box. You have to run blitz. You have to spin a safety down or already have them down pre-snap because you need to gap out because you don't have dudes that can steal gaps. You don't have guys who can play gap and a half or two. And then on top of it, you're like, okay, cool. We're just going to one gap penetrate. Cool. Everybody's going to run crunch against you or trap and you're getting blown or wham and you're getting blown out. Like, I mean, not everybody has Pat Ricard, but Pat Ricard's coming through to scoop your defensive tackle and displace him 4 yards horizontally. Oh, I have a lot of frustrations about the
football is simple. I think Coach Vass said this, and it's always one of my favorite quotes about football. Football is a simple game made complex by coaches. It's very simple what happens in football. If you lose the center of gravity or if you cannot hold up in the run game, you are probably going to lose. And I think that we kind of lost a little bit of that, especially when it comes to, passing has more value than rushing and all the advanced stats. And while that is true, when we look at how the best teams win, they don't have to sacrifice as much numbers in the run game so they can play the pass. I think a few years ago, Kirby Smart spoke at a coaching clinic that you can find on YouTube. That is
God, I've watched it so many. I've watched it so many times. Beer and everything. He talks about run fits and everything. Yeah, dude. Him and
Glenn Schumann.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, when Schumann was there.
And one of the things that stands out the most is when he talks about defending modern offenses, you have to put value in stopping the run in order to stop the pass.
Yep.
Because if you put value and bring these guys in who can defend the run for you in lighter boxes, if you could only have to defend the run with 6 people in the box, that frees up so many different things on the back end. Again, look at what the Eagles just did. Like, the Eagles won the Super Bowl winning with 4 and daring teams to run on them in light boxes, and nobody could. So I think where the Bills are, they have to try and invest in some actual defensive tackles who can drop their weight in the run game. They just need somebody who can a one tech, true one tech knows that can offer you something on early downs.
Yeah. And then that enables you to have numbers in coverage like they want to do. And I'm even thinking too, I think it's a clip from this year, Mike McDonald, the Seahawks head coach. He's talking about the value in being able to fit the run from too high structures and light boxes. And I mean, that even goes back to, I mean, I know maybe it's not a popular thing to say now because how he flamed out with the Chargers, but Brandon Staley, he was the toast of the town with what he was doing with the Rams because they were using the tight front and they were doing all this light box stuff and fitting the run and making teams go horizontal and they're able to stretch things out. And there is, to your point, so much value in that. And I love your thought about EPA, or not your thought, your comment, because it's so true. And you and I both, we use EPA, we talk advanced metrics all the time. It's so important towards framing everything and putting it together. But so much of that conversation, and I always hate it when people are like, we don't need to run the ball. The average EPA per pass is better than the average EPA per run. And I'm like, I get that, but there's no data point that's accounting for the impact of the run, making that EPA per pass successful and what that does to a defense schematically when they have to play both, let alone the formational complexity of being able to access more of the menu without having to turn the page, whether it's from personnel or from alignment, marrying the run and the pass, all those things. And so much of it stems from there. And the Bills, again, found themselves in trouble this year because as a team that, and this is both against the run and the pass, as a team that wants to, Sean McDermott wants to, despite the fact that he's a Jim Johnson disciple, he wants to run his defense the way he did in Carolina when they went to the Super Bowl. And that defense had Charles Johnson, Bro, Star Lotulelei, who was crushing it. K'Wan Short, who was like one of the best defensive tackles and an all-pro, like one of the best defensive players in football. And then they had like towards the end of his career, Jared Allen, who was still like a pass rush mercenary. Granted, behind them, they had Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly, but they had this star-studded defensive line. And so if you just want to use your front four to rush the QB or stop the run, you got to have dudes. And then in today's NFL, you need more of a rotation of dudes. You don't need a top four. You need a top six. And it could be like 3 defensive tackles and 3 edges. It could be 4 edges and 2, whatever the hell the combination is. But you need 6 dudes who are capable in some form or fashion. And on top of that, I feel like defensive lines are kind of getting to the wide receiver level of the whole basketball lineup at wide receiver. And you need your point guard, your 2 guard, your power forward, center, small forward, all that stuff, right? I think defensive lines are getting to that spot. Like, I think for a lot of how the NFL changed and became pass heavy, defensive lines, especially on the interior, they stopped having a power forward or a center because they're like, oh, we need to go small ball. We need a lot of 3-and-D guys. And now it's switched. Like, you need centers back in the game. You need Ivica Zubac. Like, you need somebody who can bang in the post. And even if they are maybe more of a 2-down player or their slider is turned down a bit against the pass, you need that. And I think the Bills are the primary example of it. Like, if you're getting pushed around on the inside, if you don't have enough sand on your interior, especially now as teams are going to continue to run the ball and go heavy, not just against the Bills, but just in general, we're talking condensed, we're talking heavy, run the ball down your throat. You can't always just one gap and hope for penetration. You need somebody who can just muck things up inside and take up 2 bodies or smash a guard back into a pulling tackle and make everybody fall down and make the running back go, uh-oh, where's the gap? What am I supposed to do now? Like, you need to shut off those lanes and those holes. And there's so much potential in this class for just good defensive tackles, but like good one-techs who could be a starter or who could be like a solid rotational guy. And if they don't grab one in the draft or free agency, because there's so much potential, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, this is as close to like fanning out as I will get. I'm so pissed at how the defensive line continues to just roll out the same archetype. It's driving me nuts. And with how much potential there is here, I'm just angry already. We haven't even gotten.
It's like the Bills' interior defensive line is like that version of Captain Crunch where it's like oops all berries. It's oops all 3 techs. Like, oh, my bad. Everybody's a 3 tech who can rush the passer, and everybody want to be a bodybuilder. Nobody want to lift that heavy ass weight. Everybody want to be a pass rusher. Everybody want to go.
Everybody want to be spelt and lean.
Nobody want to take some hits from guards. Nobody wants to lift the heavy ass weight. And I think that we need more. And on a serious note, like, football is cyclical. Like, we've seen the cycle go from more pass heavy and defense is shifting to lighter boxes, lighter bodies. And now offenses have decided, oh, if you're just going to play a 280-pound nose tackle and a 260-pound defensive tackle at 3 tech, we're just going to hit you in the mouth with gap scheme. We're not going to let you try and shoot zone. Like, you're not going to try and cut backside on me. No, we're just going to hit you in the mouth. And you want to play light boxes? You want your safety to buzz down? Okay, buzz down and hit this 330-pound guard 14, 15 times a game. That's not fun. So I think defenses are now starting to realize you got to get a little bigger up front. And so this is the perfect draft for the Bills to address that. I wouldn't even mind if they double dipped. Just go grab 2, see which one works out. Because, like you said, the current body types on the roster are a little more towards the explosive, like upfield 3 tech. And everybody wants to do that, but nobody wants to. I used to get coached. You had to earn the right to rush the passer.
Yes.
And that comes from defending the run. And so you need somebody who just wants to eat shit in the run game.
Kirby Smart, I think, says that too in that clinic, like, earn the right to rush the quarterback. And like, you have to set the tone. You have to establish that early on. You have to stop the run game. You can't live defensively in 3rd and 3s, in 3rd and 4s, because you're giving up like these chunk plays. You're letting dudes just grind you down and wear you down. And yeah, especially in today's NFL, like, penetration is awesome, right? If you can one gap and get upfield and cause chaos, that's sweet. What happens when they run duo to your side, my man, and the double's on you? What happens when they're running power and counter and they're trying to down block the hell out of you when they are? Are you gumming that up? Like, what are you doing? Let alone everything else like we talked about, like crunch and wham and trap and all these things. Yeah, it's just, I'm just bracing myself to be frustrated and angry because especially because again, there's so much like potential in this one, and I'm just waiting for them to like, not that he's bad. I haven't finished his tape completely, but I'm just waiting for them to be like Walter Nolan, and I'm gonna be like, again, another, like, we don't need another.
You doubled Ed Oliver.
Exactly.
Congratulations.
I feel like, again, what are we? Who's gonna be the backup one tech? Dwayne Carter? Is that what we're doing? Like
Walter Nolan is an incredibly athletic, incredibly like good pass rusher and vertical push guy, but you don't ask him to defend the run.
No,
because the thing with, and this is kind of a tangent, and it kind of annoys me a lot about the Ole Miss defensive line prospects. They just don't defend the run.
Yeah.
And it's not that like they can't. It's that they won't.
I got through, so I popped on Nolan's tape, and I had like literally 20 minutes, so I knew I wasn't going to go through anyway. This was maybe like 2-3 weeks ago, and I forget what game it was. And I watched it for like 10 minutes and stopped because every run play you could see he was like, that's a run, whatever. And I was like, oh, God. Yeah.
Like, it's like when the receiver wouldn't have a run to his side and he's just jogging. And I'm like, no, you're a defensive tackle.
What are you doing?
You have to be involved. And so I understand why Walter Nolan would be the dream pick there for a lot of Bills fans, but what is the benefit of duplicating Ed Oliver in a defense that already has multiple variants of Ed Oliver on it? So I get it, but I also think that their needs could be addressed in better ways.
Yes. I second that notion. Yeah, I could just, I'm bracing myself for a lot of things. All right, let's move on to another defensive line spot, the other side of the defensive line, the outside, the exterior, the edge position at the 2025 NFL Combine. JP, similar to what we did for the interior defensive line, which day one or day two edges can help themselves the most at the 2025 NFL Combine?
So when it comes to Bills' best fits, I think the dream, obviously, would be Texas A&M edge Shamar Stewart, because holy shit, excuse my French, but holy shit, man. Like, if you watch him play and then I tell you that he is close to 290 on the edge and he's dipping and bending around the corner with explosiveness and speed, it's like, what are you talking about? That's a created character. And when you watch him, I watched him up close in Mobile at Senior Bowl. He doesn't look 290 or 285. He was listed at 281. He looks like he's closer to 265. Like, he's just built like that. Yeah. And so I think the thing that people don't understand with Shamar Stewart, and I wrote about it for SU Nation last week, it's that the lack of pass rush production comes from the fact that he just couldn't finish. It's not that he didn't have a pass rush plan, because he did. If you look at what his tape was in 2023, when he was actually rushing from more of a wide 9 instead of being the 4-eye in the mid front, like that changes a lot of what your pass rush plan is. You're in a mid front, you're stepping more towards the B gap in order to stop the run on the way to the pass. In a wide 9, you're not doing any of that. It's pinning your ears back and going. You don't care about the run. So when you watch his 2023 tape, and even some of the 2024, you can see the plan. And you can see the violence in the hands, the burst, the explosion. It's just he doesn't finish plays. And I'm willing to take a chance on that. I think he's a top 10 player in this class, because you just don't find guys that big, that explosive, who moves like they do. Another one of the dream prospects, of course, I don't think he'll make it there, but Michael Williams from Georgia is like, I think Sean McDermott would absolutely love Michael Williams. He is arguably the best run defending edge in this class. He, again, plays the 4-eye in the mid front at 265 pounds. Yeah, man, he's going to defend the run really well. And there's a rep, I think, against Notre Dame where he destroys the tight end, knocks him into the other pulling tight end, which helps clear up the lane for the linebacker, who comes in and absolutely obliterates the running back. And I'm like, yes, that is football. That is real football. The thing with Williams is, and I think the thing that separates he and Shamar Stewart is, I don't think Williams is as bendy as Stewart. I think he's a little bit stiffer. I wonder if that's because of the ankle injury. I wonder if that might be because of the ankle injury, but he's not as, while both still need development of a pass rush plan. I think Stewart is a little more further along. I think Williams needs a little bit more design pass rush where he can be like a hammer in the run in the pass game, where he's the guy cracking the guard when it comes to stunts and loops. So those are the two, like, the dream scenarios. Now, for guys I think are realistic on the back end of day one into day two, I'm actually going to go with Shamar Stewart's teammate, Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. When you watch Nick Scorton in 2024, I promise you got to go back and watch 2023 as well. 2023 Scorton versus 2024 Scorton are two completely different tapes. I talked a lot about what the mid front does and what they ask of their players, like Shamar Stewart, who was listed at A&M at 290 pounds. So because you had to play the 4-eye and take on double teams. That's a lot different than playing on the edge in a 4-2-5. Scorton came from Purdue, where he was doing the 4-2-5 stuff, added 20 pounds in weight to come play the 4-eye at Texas A&M, and people wondered why he wasn't as explosive. Like, he put on bad weight. And you could tell that he put on bad weight. He just didn't have that second gear.
Yeah, so it didn't look like proportioned. Like, coming right out of the gate against Notre Dame this year, I was like, oh, you don't look like you feel good at this weight. It just doesn't look built well.
Like, both, like, Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton were like had a 5-pound difference, but you can tell which one carried it a lot better. I don't think Scorton carried that weight well.
Agreed.
But at his best, he is such a long and violent player. Violent in the run game. Everything he does, I like to describe it as like a sense of urgency. Like, he's doing it with force. He plays with a lot of force when he is playing a little lighter. I think he's really similar to guys like Keon White. And my comp for him, like playing style wise, was Emmanuel Ogbah, in just the force and the violence that he can play with when he's at a slim, trimmed down weight. So for him going into the combine, I wonder what weight he's going to come in at. I wonder what he's going to come in. I hope he comes in around 265, 270, because I think he'll be more explosive at that weight. And if he does come in more explosive, I think we're looking at a guy who could probably sneak into the back of round one. I think he's probably going to be around that late day one, early day two. That's my range for him. But I think the combine is going to be huge for him. The next guy is, I kind of jumbled them into two, but it's the Ohio State edges.
I was gonna say Sawyer and JTT.
It's Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, because they are both very similar.
Yeah,
they are both very similar, but I'm specifically talking about Jack Sawyer here. And Sawyer occupies a weird, like, odd space for a lot of people. I think we kind of got out over our skis a little bit with Jack Sawyer, saying like, oh, round one player. No, probably not. Jack Sawyer is an incredible character guy. Probably going to ace all the interviews. Team locker room guy. He plays with a lot of effort, really high motor. He can get under guys in the run game. His problem is that he has short arms and no bend. So how do you win at the NFL level with short arms and no bend, and you're not Aiden Hutchinson? So I wonder what he's going to test in the agilities at the combine. I also wrote about that last week at SB Nation. I'm looking more at the agilities and the jumps, because all your explosiveness and athletic potential comes from the hips. The hips are kind of the string that ties your lower body and your upper body together. If you're a boxing fan, if you watch boxing or UFC, you can see when they throw kicks, when they throw punches, you're rotating your hips, you're getting your whole body into it. And that's because you're transferring power from your lower body into your upper body. That is huge for a defensive lineman. When you do power cleans, you do hang cleans, you are transferring your weight from your lower body into your upper body. And when that applies onto a football field, you're tackling. When you tackle, you're transferring weight into the upper body, into your shoulders to go forward. And that helps in playing the run. When you go to stack and shed, you're not just doing that off upper body strength, unless you're Tyleik Williams. It's generating the force through your body. And I want to see how both Sawyer and Tuimoloau can generate that force and explosion in their hips. I want to see their jumps to see what they can do there. And if we go to more guys that are a little bit different from what the Bills normally like in their edges. The first guy I think of is Donovan Ezeraku from
Nice.
Boston
There it
College.
is.
I freaking love this guy. Like, I think he's amazing. 6'2", 250 pounds. He's got 34-inch arms, though. So,
Yeah.
however he lacks in, like, true weight, he has the arm length enough to survive on the edge. But go watch.
And
Watch
the
his
bend, man.
the burst, the explosiveness. He has a nice set of counters to the explosion as well. Like against Florida State, all he did was set up the tackles to the outside, then boom, inside swim, sack. He did that like 3 times. And it's like, oh, you know what your pass rush plan is. You know how to win. I'll take that every day of the week. So I think Ezeraku, honestly, is one of my favorite, like I said, one of my favorite players in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into late day 1, but day 2 seems like the range for him. And then Braden Swinson from LSU, kind of a late get around to him. But I kept wondering when I watched some of the other guys that played LSU, I'm like, number 4, making a lot of interesting plays. Swinson is not a run defender. Just don't ask him to defend the run. It's
not
I think the thing is he doesn't have the technique, but also like even though he's 250 pounds, he's a little bit light in the ass in the run game. And I think there's a bad rep where Tyler Booker kind of Super Smash Bros. Dramatic finishes him. Or it's like he hits him and you just hear the Super Smash Bros. Game.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, that's what happens when you run into Tyler Booker. But he is such a refined pass rusher that I think he's going to find ways to win at the next level because he knows what his plan is. He has a nice set of inside swipes, counters. He has enough bend. I think he could use some more at the top of his pass rush, but he's got enough to win at the next level. So it really depends on what the Bills want to do in terms of their body types and where they want to move forward at the edge spot. Because while I think Greg Rousseau and AJ Epineza have their uses and are incredibly valuable, Greg Rousseau has really come into his own as a very good player. You need, like we talked about, different body types on the interior. You need different body types on the edge. And something that stood out in the Bills' losses and how they lost games, they didn't have a guy who could go get them a bucket as a pass rusher using dip and bend, So I wonder if this is the year that they kind of try and mesh that a little bit better.
Oh, man. I have so many thoughts because so many of the things you said, like I don't even have to speak too much in this one because so many of the things you said are things that I was going to say. So this is fantastic. I'll start with the archetype piece again. And actually, we even started with the guys who are on the roster, right? Like Rousseau is their number 1 edge, and rightfully so. Elite run defender. The length, the understanding of block deconstruction, can literally cover 2 gaps just with his wingspan. But he understands leverage. He understands hand placement, pop, understanding, like everything. Like we had him on the other show that I do last offseason. I don't remember. But listening to him talk about how he reads pad level and neckline and jersey number alignment. And based on, okay, like if a tackle turns this way, if I can see this part of the jersey, I'm going to put my hand here. If I don't, I'm going to put my hand here. Here's my, like, he breaks it down into a science of how he takes on blocks and uses his hands. And just, he's so good against the run. As a pass rusher, I think he's more of a Robin than he is a Batman. And so it's like, okay, can you get yourself a Batman, or can you get yourself more Robins? Because AJ Epineza isn't a Robin as a pass rusher. Like, he got better against the run, but he's more of like an edge 3 overall. Von Miller flashed a bit at times, but at best he's a Robin. I still feel like he's like flashing between like high end 3, like low to mid tier 2 type of guy. But even within that, Von was your one outlier in terms of dip, bend, athleticism when you signed him a couple years ago. Obviously, he got hurt, and then there's more miles on the tires. They brought in Leonard Floyd 2 seasons ago, similar to that outlier type of mold. Then they went back to kind of just who they are this year, and it was like, okay, Von, Rousseau, Epineza, and Smoot. And for me, it starts with, do they look to add dip or bend or athleticism to that edge spot in some capacity, either in the draft or free agency? I think overall, that's funny. Paisan said he's more of a Nightwing. I like that. Well done. That's very good. Well done. Very well done. That's super good. I wonder, I think up front for the Bills, especially at the edge spot, but they need more bucket getters. They need pendulum swingers. They need hunters, assassins, mercenaries, whatever verbiage you want to use. That's what they need up front, but especially on the edge. Like my dream for them at edge, based on anticipated cost and who he is and how he plays, like give me Dante Fowler in free agency. Give me a slasher. Somebody's got the ability to kind of like attack the rim, can win you one-on-ones, has juice, athleticism, bend. Watch him play the read option or the QB read against the Ravens and watch him chase down Lamar to the sideline. And then like literally the next rep goes upfield, puts the brakes on, spin moves back inside to beat Rosengarten, does a similar thing against the Falcons. Like that athleticism and juice. Give me that in a proven capacity. And then you can draft another guy for pocket compression or whatever the hell you want to do. But they just need more athleticism. They need more juice. They need more dip. They need more bend. Not everybody needs to be a friggin' pocket compressor. Not everybody needs to be that. Now, that being said, I tweeted earlier today, I really do think Mykel Williams is like and you know, to your credit and to your thought, Stewart is in that similar boat. When I was going through and looking up guys, I always used like their combine weight and stuff to kind of see what they did and their Senior Bowl weight if they did that. But seeing Stewart being listed at 6'6", 290, and I was like, just that size. And you hit the difference between like him and Williams. Williams, I think, is the archetype fit for the Bills because it's length, it's strength, it's run defense, it's pocket compression. I think he has a bit more from a moves and juice perspective than they normally go with their pocket compressors. But what he was in 2023, and then combined with like, I thought he was done for the year with his ankle against Clemson. Like I was so upset. I was like, because he, at that point, right, going into the year, he was like a top 3 prospect for like a lot of people who do this significantly. Like he was number 1 or throughout the offseason, it was like, oh, James Pierce. And then as we got closer, it was Mykel Williams, the length, the size, the strength. He wrecks his ankle. And I was like, oh, dude, he's done. He misses a couple games, plays through it the rest of the year, and is doing things like driving through Calvin Banks when George is playing Texas. Like he's winning the half-man relationship, creating a soft edge and just ripping through him on a bum ankle. Like I think that's a big win for a lot of teams. They're going to see that as a character thing, him gutting it out. But for the Bills, like that plus the stylized way that he plays the game along with his physical traits and tools, it just screams like Bills to me. But I don't know if he's going to fall. He's a big one, as you alluded to. Like if he tests well at the combine, I think he starts to propel himself back to like everyone being like, oh yeah, we forgot that he was like a easy top 5 prospect or like a top 10 guy. Like this is the guy we thought we would see. Forget or let's take into account more that he played through that ankle injury and maybe he'll go higher. But if he does fall somehow, I think he's that guy. Stewart, I think this is going to sound so dumb. I literally see him and I'm like, does he have too much bend for them? Are they not going to like that? Like, and then I'm
saying for 290,
which is so dumb. It's such a stupid question to ask. But then I'm like, you know what? No, because the size and the length and the run defense and the violence, it should be enough. But then I'm like, but is it? Like, is there too much athleticism there? And that pisses me off because it's such a stupid question to ask. But like those, I love you kind of mentioned in those pieces. You hit on Scorton with kind of everything. And then, yeah, the Ohio State guys, you literally mentioned like everybody I was going to talk about, so I don't have too much to add. I want to see who can separate themselves. Sawyer, you were spot on. He is the epitome of like the certain way you describe a certain demographic type of player going into the NBA draft. First one in, last one out, gym rat, like a leader, all that kind of stuff. But it's like true. Like it's hard to see him ball out against Michigan and then after the game stuff and being like, nah, like F that. They're not planting that flag at our field. And it makes you like, oh, I kind of want that guy like on my team. JTT just has, I also respect you for actually pronouncing his last name, something I will not do. I will be saying JTT for the entirety of this draft process and the entirety of his NFL career, however long it lasts. But I think his juice off the ball, there's more with JTT. And then he's got a spin move, and it's a good spin move. Like, I feel like there's more electricity, there's more juice with him as opposed to Sawyer. And then Sawyer on top of it too, like kind of the shorter arm length and what he is. But yeah, how does the testing affect them? Does either creep up early second, mid second? Are you looking at one of these guys at the back end of the second, or does Sawyer measure or test not great, and all of a sudden you're looking at him as like an early day or an early round 3 type of dude, or back end of 2, and then the value kind of changes a little bit. That's really where it starts for me. And then I'm just going to keep calling him Donovan from Boston College because I cannot pronounce his last name. I listened to multiple interviews and I tried. I'm just not getting it. But 60 friggin' pressures this past year with, and I know people might well excuse the numbers, 14 pressures that made me cough against Pitt. Like, that's insane. And then multiple games, he had a 9 pressure game. So the 9 and the 14 obviously skews it, but all his games, 4 pressures, 3, 2, 5, 5, 9, 2, 3, 5, 2, 6, 14. And then you'd be like, oh, cool. So he can rush the passer. Like, what does he do against the run? He had 42, bro. He had 42 run stops. And you see the length. Yes. The length, the bend, the athleticism. I watched him and I was like, yo, he's fun. He's too bendy. He's off. Like, I'm like, they're not taking it. Like, he's not there. But he's so fun. Like, watching him turn the corner and dip and bend and use the athleticism. Like, I like what he does. He's another one. Yeah. Like, I feel like he's going to do well in the 3-cone. He's going to have a good 10-yard split, and someone's going to see him at around 250 pounds with good arm length. I almost kind of want to see him jump because I just don't believe the Bills would take him, but I would welcome him. Like, but also it's just frustrating to like see that and be like, oh, they're not going to take. Oh my God, I missed a super chat. So sorry, Nub Animator. We got to pivot. Well, kind of stay on here. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for the super chat. I'm so sorry that I missed this until now. I got caught up in my frustrations. Nub Animator says, any chance, this is so funny, any chance Bean moves away from physical profiles? The last 3-ish first round picks, the last 3 first-ish round picks, I should say, have been misfires. Wide receivers that can't get open, tight ends that can't block, cornerbacks that can't cover. Damn, tell me how you really feel. This is the question, though. Like, do they move away, especially on the defensive line? And again, this ties into right what I was saying. Like, do they see somebody? And JP, you nailed it already. And I also got a comment here from Nabil saying it's pronounced Eziraku or Easy Raku. That's fine. I'm going to continue to botch it. I just don't want to do a disservice to a press. I'm going to have to study up. I'll get there. But I do think they need to change that profile, especially with, if you can find somebody who's got dip and bend and athleticism, but still can play the run and like do it from a physical perspective, not just a slasher and a penetrator, like what you can get from some of these dudes in the class. I just think it's necessary. Watching them have dudes who struggle to get to Mahomes, struggle to get to Lamar. Granted, everybody struggles to get to Lamar, but with what you're seeing in the AFC and some of the quarterbacks kind of coming up a little bit, I just think they need more juice at that spot on the outside. And I think this is a really good question of, does Bean move away from the physical profile? I want to say yes. Like, my heart really does want them to. I mean, I think they kind of did it a little bit at safety last year by going with Cole Bishop, but I don't know, man. It just seems like they have their archetypes and they're like, no, we know what works for us. We want to, adapt and evolve, quote unquote. But I don't know. And it hurts my heart because there's so many fun dudes that I see and I'm like, oh, this guy's awesome. Nah, he's not a fit. He's too athletic. This guy's out.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of teams actually struggle with, especially the Bills. They are so reliant on the athletic measurables and fitting their brand of football. And as a Jaguars fan, believe me, I understand. Trenton Baalke's thing with arm length took away a whole lot of good players. But I think for the Bills to evolve, and I think that's the biggest thing, it's the evolution.
Yes.
We've seen the Bills offense evolve. Now it's time for the defense to kind of take the same step. Not only in evolution, but the Bills defense is slow, especially in the secondary, which we'll get to, but their defense is so built on constriction and collapsing the pocket and collapsing on receivers and constricting space. They need people with speed. They need to go get it immediately and go get it now.
Yeah, so many of the things you've said and that I've said here, I've said for like the last 3 or 4 years. And I just like, but this year really feels like, I'm like, okay, they might work in a little more press. They might work in a little more man. They might want to constrict the airspace a little bit on third downs or high leverage situations from a passing perspective. They may want some more athleticism at the edge spot. They may, and I just keep thinking and hoping and thinking and hoping. And man, there's just, I think edge is a close 2 for me at this combine in terms of like not looking away, because there's so many guys that I'm very interested to see how they test, to see how much they jump, because there are so many guys who have good production numbers statistically and good tape. And I want to see who can separate themselves at the combine. Yeah, I'm very, very, very interested to see that. Let us move on to, you want to do safety or you want to do corners next?
I think we can. I'm cool with either or. I kind of think my players are very similar in what we've talked about with the Bills changing their archetype, especially at position.
Copy that. Let's do safety first, just because I have it. Actually, no, I said, you know what? No, I said we would stick to the order that I DM'd you, and I'm a man of my word, much like the Joker. Let's go with corner. All right, so corners, what we're focusing on here, how the combine can kind of shake up the round 1 corner order, and which potential, corners or, individually or plural can help themselves the most. Again, part of it, I think corner is a sneaky need for this Bills team. If they address defensive line in free agency, I could see them trying to mitigate some stuff and then taking the quote unquote best player available at a position of need in the first round. But also just, I could see them with how the corner free agent market is. I could see them going for someone like a Benjamin St. Juste just to kind of give you some depth there, and then drafting somebody at pick 30, but it would depend on how it go, obviously how the round falls out. So let's talk about corners and your thoughts here with the combine.
So outside of the top 2 corners, it really is anybody's game for cornerback 3. It feels like with this draft class, the top 2 guys of position are locked in. I don't think anybody has Will Johnson ahead of Travis Hunter, but everybody has Will Johnson as number 2. After that, you kind of get into a whole bunch of, let's see how the combine shakes it up. And I think the biggest thing that's really going to enforce this is the fact that ECU's Siobhan Revel Jr. is not going to work out.
Great call.
I think Siobhan Revel Jr. would be a home run pick for the Bills, even with the torn ACL. Because if you look at what the Bills like in their corners, it's a lot of physicality up front, but it's length. It's arm length and it's speed. And Siobhan Revel Jr. is what, before the injury, I think he was one of the fastest corners in this draft. And you could see it on tape. He trusts his speed, especially downfield. He also has multiple pick sixes. And I think they need that boom. They need the boom from their secondary. I think another guy that fits is Azariah Thomas from Florida State. You think of arm length and physicality. Florida State does not play a lot of different coverages. They are a man coverage team. And he lives on an island. But his physicality up front, his trust in his speed, the ball production, the ball skills, I think that all translates really well. But if you think about guys that are a little bit more outliers at position, if they were drafted by the Bills, the first guy I think of is Jahdae Barron, who absolutely fits what the Bills want to do schematically. I wonder if he's more of a nickel than outside. I think there's a possibility that he's more of a nickel, but that allows you to be versatile. When you think about what the Chiefs do with Trent McDuffie, letting him match up with guys inside and out. Jahdae Barron could possibly be that same style of guy. I wonder how he runs specifically, because I don't know if he runs very fast, and I think that might knock him down the board a little bit. And then a guy like Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky, he's a little bit slighter frame. I think he's only going to come around 6 feet, 5'11", more in the 180 range. But his foot speed, the quickness, the instincts, and zone coverage, he is one of the better off-man coverage corners in this draft class. So it really depends, like you said, on if the Bills are willing to go away from their positional archetypes with this class, because there's a lot of leeway for guys, especially after Will Johnson, to have a great combine and boost their way up, especially because Siobhan Revel Jr. isn't going to work out.
Yeah, I felt so bad for him when he went down with injury, and just, I was like, oh, like of all the dudes, like I forgot who was, I think Brugler was hyping him up a ton. Like, I just remember him hyping up him and Genty throughout the entire like off season, and then goes down like early in this year. Again, we are in pretty much lockstep with corners. I don't. I had this initial dream of somehow Will Johnson would like fall to 30, and I was like, that's not gonna happen. I don't know why I even thought that for a minute. That ain't gonna happen. I am really torn. Like after him, Barron is the big one for me from a combine perspective. I want to see what he tests from a speed perspective, but everything. I want to see the arm length. I want to see the height, the weight, like all of it. I want to know, can he live on that outside? Like this dude who kind of played everywhere and then won so many awards this year playing on the outside, and what he did for that defense. How translatable is that? And again, not that he has to be the biggest guy. And I do believe, based off of some things that Brandon Beane said in his presser after that draft, I do think they were going to take Trent McDuffie. This has become like lore and legend at this point for like Bills fans. Cause like they took Kyrie Elam, but he never mentions like any players that they don't take. And he mentioned McDuffie multiple times. And it just seemed like, like why would you do that? He mentioned some other things with him. Like, I also don't know if like Barron's going to fall. Like he's one that I'm very interested to see, like how guys, like some people have him as like a top 10 prospect. Some people have him like closer to like the 30s. And I wonder how much, if he runs like a 4.53, does that knock him down the board a little bit? If he runs like a 4.53 and he's only got like a 50 percentile wingspan, or maybe even like a little bit less, and he measures a little less than 200 pounds and he runs that 4.5, like how are people feeling about what he is? But the tape and what he does and how physical he is and how like versatile he is as a player. And I like his short area burst. I like the quickness and being able to read the QB, anticipate, and drive on the ball. I think he's an impact player and he makes game-changing type of plays. It's the reason that like and again, I think they'd be a little more expensive, less expensive than I think what they're billed at. Two of the corners that I'd like the Bills to go at in free agency, Asante Samuel Jr. or Paulson Adebo. And I know Samuel has some tackling issues. Some of them are tied to his size, obviously, but he's willing. A lot of it is just technique-based, which I think the Bills can clean up. But so much of him, and you know this from that miraculous Jags comeback, he's just jumping routes left and right, like against the Jags in the playoffs, and he does that all the time. Like he's so good as like a cloud corner. And there's nobody in my zone. Let me just follow the QB's eyes and let me rob this over route from the other side of the field. And I'm just going to sink under it and jump it. Like he has I think the second interception against Jacksonville in that playoff game. He's a cloud corner, far side of the field, reroutes his man, and then there's a drag coming from the other side. He sees it and already starts jumping it. And then he picks it off like almost like over the ball from Trevor Lawrence. And you just see like there's so much risk reward a bit to his game, but he makes plays on the ball. And I think the Bills need that. I think they need more of that impact player type of variance. I think Barron can bring that in a variety of ways. He's the big one for me, like the round one CB. I think based on how he tests, he can firmly entrench himself as corner 3, or he might fall a little bit towards the end of the first. And again, I know what the defensive line needs are for the Bills. I just think corner is a sneaky one. Like right now, the corners are Kyrie Elam and Christian Benford. And you look at a team that brought in Ryan Nielsen, who you know very well, not fondly probably, although he's going to be more defensive line based, I should say. And then they bring in the nickel coach from the Pats, who, what do we know about the Patriots defense? Tons of man, cover one, single high, a ton of that stuff. You add in the little breadcrumb from Sean McDermott talking about wanting to tweak man coverage a little bit more and take away, airspace and make things a little tighter. I just look at someone like Barron and what he can do from a physicality standpoint, from a run defense standpoint, and a lot of it he's the big one. Again, you mentioned a bunch, so I don't want to drill down too many on the same guys again, but Barron is the big one for me because I think how he tests and how he measures could go a long way for him in making him CB3 or, I don't know, CB5 or something, and he's fallen and he's there at 30, and then you have a chance to add he's just a good football player in a variety of ways, who makes plays on the ball in the air, who makes plays on the ball versus the run. He's tough. He's nasty. Got a good pedigree with it, with like the team that he comes from. I don't believe in scouting the helmet, but you got dudes who played in high-profile games, making high-profile plays. He's the big one for me because I do think corner is like a sneaky, sneaky need. And then how does that fit into the archetype conversation like we talked about? He's the big one for me.
Yeah, I think another guy that sort of fits in that, a lot of question marks are like, will he work out? Is Notre Dame's Benjamin Morrison.
Oh, good call.
Before the hip injury, if you watch the 2023 tape against Marvin Harrison Jr., you go, oh yeah, that's first round pick. But
Yeah.
the thing with him is he already was a little bit stiff in man coverage, even though he played with so much physicality and could jump routes with instincts. He was already a little bit stiff in the hips, and now you wonder with a hip injury,
Yeah.
how does that change a lot of stuff? But Notre Dame plays their guys on an island. They play so much man coverage.
Yeah.
And Benjamin Morrison was starting as a freshman. So I think if you're able to do that at Notre Dame with how much man coverage they play, I want to believe, but I also wonder if he tests. And if he tests, what is he going to test like?
Yeah, that's very fair. He's the one for me that I think like I see even just myself of being like, who could threaten, because I like Barron a lot, but like who could threaten Barron as CB3? I really do think if Ravel was healthy, I feel like there's a good chance he's CB3 coming in, just like the plays on the ball, the size, the athleticism, like all of it, just like how he anticipates, how he attacks. Which even that, like, I wouldn't mind that at 30. Like, okay, like we'll take oh no, his stock fell a little bit because he got banged up. Oh no. Like, I mean, that's what this sounds terrible to say. That's what I'm kind of hoping for with like some of the free agent like guys. I hope like someone's like, we're not going to give Paulson Adebo that money because he's coming off that broken femur. And the Bills are like, all right, cool. Do you want to prove it deal? Here's 1 year, $7 million. And then you can go somewhere else after and we'll pair you with a day 2 corner and kind of go from there. Like, I wonder how that impacts the class. But Morrison is the one for me right now that like, does he and how much can he or will he threaten for that CB3 spot if he doesn't already have it locked up for like scouts and teams and that? Because again, like you said, like the defense he comes from, the scheme that they had, the type of caliber of dudes he's battled against, like it's significant. And it is real, like at that spot. Anything else on corners before we move on to safety?
No, I think I kind of hit on some of my guys that I really like. Oh, Quincy Riley from Louisville, a little bit of an older prospect, around 5'10", little shorter guy. But when you talk about dog in him award, Quincy Riley has that. If you just watch him play, he plays so much bigger than what he's listed at. I wonder if he's seen as more of a nickel guy than outside, but the dude plays with I like to say this describing some DBs. They play with an AFC North mentality.
I like that. That's good.
Quincy Riley plays like he would fit great in the AFC North. And I also think that meshes well with what Sean McDermott likes in his corners, with the physicality up front, the willingness to tackle. And I think that's something that's going to play huge with a lot of defensive back prospects is, can you and are you willing to tackle? Which is why I think Barron, again, despite some of the positional outlier stuff, would be Sean McDermott's guy there.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like that type of mentality and the effectiveness, like you need to come up and fit the run if you are a Bills corner, whether it's like, cover 2 cloud stuff and you're that guy outside, or like, but can you be a force player? Can you come up and make the tackle? Can you play like through wide receivers and tight end blocks on the RPO bubble stuff or just screens? And I think a lot of, not even just that's always been like a McDermott thing and a Bills defense thing. Your corners have to tackle, but I feel like we're getting more with that with defenses in general, with how much teams are running the ball. And if you're going to go condensed, especially to like something as simple like, okay, duo, there's going to be an unblocked defender. Ideally, the offense wants it to be that corner or the nickel. So cool. Are you going to be able to, the Bills are a great example. If you're a corner, can you come up and fit up James Cook as that outside guy as the force player? Or are you going to take a poor angle and he's going to outrun you? Or is it a bigger back and now you're dealing with Jonathan Taylor on the outside or something like that? Like, do you have the size, the technique, and the want to be able to play that run? And yeah, that's tremendously important to the Bills, but I think more and more with each passing season until football becomes cyclical. And then, I don't know, 7 years, we go back to like ultra spread football again. It's going to matter. That run defense piece matters. Safety for the Bills. I think a bit of a sneaky one, potentially, depending on who I think could fall to 30. Right now, the Bills safety tandem for starters looking like Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp. I've talked a bunch on the show in terms of, it seems weird even because Bishop is more athletic than Rapp, but a bit of the positional redundancy between the two of them. Neither Rapp has the intelligence from a coverage standpoint, but he doesn't have the athleticism and the wheels to be a post safety. Bishop has the athleticism and the juice, but doesn't have the processing and the diagnosing yet. He could. We'll see. Maybe he tunes it up a bit this offseason, but I think neither of them are suited to be kind of the more free safety, be more of that post safety, that range. I think both of them are more suited to be in and around the box and the line of scrimmage. I think Bishop gives you more of that flexibility because of how he can man up against tight ends, some slots and running backs, and just what he was at Utah is like that big nickel apex type of dude. But that looks to be the starting safety tandem as of right now. There's one safety that I think if he falls to 30, this probably isn't unique to me. I'm absolutely in love with Malachi Starks, but we'll see how the conversation goes here. For you, JP, which safety or safeties can help their draft stock the most at the combine this week?
When we talk about the Bills, especially in the secondary, I think they need some explosiveness and they need juice from their guys. Of course, Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin both have their roles and they both fill their roles well, but they also are kind of redundant. Yes. Neither guys are super explosive athletes going backwards and can't really make a lot of plays on the ball. So how about we get the most athletic prospect in this class and put him on the Bills in South Carolina safety Nick Emenwari. This dude is insane. Like I quite frankly, one of my guys, Corey Kennan, has him as his safety one in this class. So I went back and watched and it's incredible the stuff that he's able to do at 6'3" and 228 pounds. I'm just going to list off some of the athletic stuff from how they measured at South Carolina this offseason. So again, 6'3", 228. He had a 42-inch vertical jump at 6'3", 228. He had an 11.4 broad jump. He bench pressed 225 24 times.
Wow.
And he also has 33-inch arms, 80-inch wingspan. He had 3 interceptions this season. I don't like comparing guys to other NFL players because then you automatically assume this guy's going to have this sort of career. But if you're looking for a guy that's very similar to Derwin James in his ability to just come forward and tattoo somebody with urgency, I think Nick Emenwari is that guy, but I also think he has some ability playing backwards and some range. So if he's there at 30, which I think he might be, I don't know, after this week, he might be going a little higher. I think that explosiveness will play so well in the Bills defense, especially if we talked about how they want to defend the run in the light box. Emenwari did a lot of that at South Carolina. So I think he will play really well in that defense. Another guy that, again, might be a little bit of a positional outlier, but I freaking love the guy is Oklahoma's Billy Bowman. The dude just plays ball, man. He is going to be everywhere. He's everywhere around the ball. He's got range, can play slot. He can also play safety. I think he's a quality guy that you're going to find on day 2 that I think is going to start immediately and play a really nice role. He can blitz. I think he's got a lot of range on the back end. But again, he's 5'9". So where do you find a role that best fits for him? Another guy that I think, if you're looking for explosiveness, is Andrew Makuba from Texas, who kind of got a little he kind of went under the radar after transferring to Texas, but he's got range, he's got instincts, he's played a lot of football, and I think the football character would really stand out to Sean McDermott. And when we talk about guys with football character who might not be the best athletes, I am very curious how Xavier Watts tests at the combine, because Xavier Watts, again, if we're going off of Bills archetypes, Xavier Watts is a Bills safety. He is just an average athlete, but he's always around the ball. Always around the ball. He's going to have production on the ball. He can play deep safety. He can play close to the line of scrimmage. You just worry about leaving him on islands because he's not that explosive of an athlete. So I wonder how he tests, and if the Bills go back to the well of guys that aren't that explosive but can make plays on the ball, or do they go for a guy that's a little bit more of an athlete to kind of make up for some of the deficiencies that might happen playing safety as a rookie in the NFL?
Oh, I love a lot of these thoughts. I'll kind of work backwards, starting with, so Watts for me is on my list. The big one, and this play will stick with me, the game they lost against Northern Illinois. There's a ball that goes out of bounds, and he jumps and gets it and then knows he's going to fall out of bounds, so he puts it back in play, but his corner like doesn't have the same awareness and the ball just falls to the ground. Like he made like such a spectacular, like, I can go up and get this. I'm not going to come down in bounds, but let me throw it backwards inbounds to my guy to try and make a play. And I think that play is just such a good microcosm of what he is, because he's so smart. Like you said, he's always around the ball. Like his eyes and his diagnosing seemingly always put him wherever the ball is, in the air, on the ground, like he's there. This safety class has a lot for me. And like you mentioned, obviously multiple guys here. I'll start with Emin Wari, who, for those who don't know, I picked South Carolina in my NCAA franchise to start this past season. Uniform combination, off the charts. They play in the SEC, and I thought it'd be a fun challenge because so many of their players are seniors, and I have to rebuild. Emin Wari, I'm happy to announce, en route to our national championship, he finished third in the Heisman voting. First was Lenore Sellers, because we did that thing. But I have a huge soft spot for Emin Wari. I'm one game into the tape for him. I am interested to see how much of a, deep safety he can play versus is maximizing his skill set and length and juice and frame and all of it like down in and around the box, or just blitzing him and sending him, and like what that kind of looks like. And to your point, if he tests well, I'm very interested to see. Like, so for me, Malachi Starks is safety one, but I'm very interested because, like, you mentioned it just from like the analysis community, but even from an NFL perspective, I know some people have Emin Wari as like safety one or kind of in that range. And I do think he'll test off the charts, to your point. And I wonder, is that enough to lock him in as safety one, or just this guy that teams covet because of not the positionless aspect of him, but kind of how a force multiplier he can be from an athleticism or in and around the box standpoint. And if that were to happen, I'd be fine with that, because for the Bills, Malachi Starks, I think, does so much because of the deep safety stuff, the range, the ball skills, the coverage understanding, the match ability. But then also you can take somebody and just be like, okay, cool, we're going to take our safety and put him in the slot, and he can man up against slot receivers and carry them like on post wheels, slants, digs. His ability to just straight up stay in phase in man coverage versus a variety of body types and skill sets at wide receiver or just in the slot in general. Man, I'm very interested to see kind of what he does at the combine, because for as good as he is in coverage and as good of a player as he is, and maybe this might just be like me watching how he plays, I don't think he's going to run too great or test too great. I don't think he's going to be a guy like, okay, cool, he runs a 4.47. I think he might get into the 4.5s. And if that happens and Emin Wari like tests off the charts, do we get a further jump? Do people, I don't know, does Watts test pretty good? And then, he's going to interview great on top of it. And then he's got some good stats. Like, is there a chance he creeps up a little bit? Like, what do we see just, I think, from this safety grouping? I like how you mentioned Makuba. I think he's going to test well with how explosive he shows on tape. I'm interested to see how safety 1 through like 6 shakes out. And I do think the combine will go like a real long way towards it. And not that, I think we've gotten to a point where safeties don't have to be the most elite athlete, and teams are okay with that. It's about how you process your angles to the football, how you diagnose in terms of how quickly and accurate you can do it. But man, I just wonder if Starks tests in a way that drops him down, if Emin Wari tests in a way that props him up or already solidifies him being up there if he's already there for some teams. And then on top of it, yeah, like the rest of this safety class, like even like the little, like the out, not little, but like the outlier guys like Ransom and Winston, like what do you kind of see? I have a real soft spot for Achille Arnold. I have no idea how he's going to test. I just love the way he plays. Like I watch so much USC defense purely because of Achille Arnold. I'm interested to see the safeties. But I really do think, to your point, I think Emin Wari is the answer for like which safety can kind of help their stock the most at the combine. I think it's him, because if he's not safety 1, he could be because of how well he tests. And then he's got some good tape out there too, but I think he could be the dude that sets the combine on fire.
And I think when it comes to Starks, would the Bills get aggressive for him if Starks starts to fall? If he gets into the 15 to 17 range, is that the time where the Bills go, okay, like let's make the jump. Let's go get him. Go get.
And what's interesting with that is even though Taylor Rapp signed a 3-year contract, he does have a very affordable out from a dead cap perspective if they want to move out from him, especially from a post June 1st world. So say Starks falls, you're like, screw it, we're going to pull the trigger on him. We can cut Rapp or keep Rapp as safety 3, like if that works out, whatever you want to do. And I really do think Starks, I'm an advocate of that trade up there because I think Starks also unlocks Bishop a little bit because now Starks can play more of the post. They both can function in the 2-high world, but Starks can allow Bishop to play more in and around the line of scrimmage and do fun stuff. And imagine the two of them rocking and rolling on the snap or what you're doing from a coverage perspective and how you can rotate dudes. And Starks can buzz down and cover the flat. He can cover the hook to curl. He can man up for a defense that is looking to get more multiple and versatile and restrict airspace. If your two safeties are Cole Bishop and Malachi Starks potentially, man, this comment, K. Amori gets me. He says, Ant's dream world is sign Javon Holland and draft Malachi Starks. That is my dream world. Give me Javon Holland and Malachi Starks as my safety duo. I don't care that a second was used on Cole Bishop. I don't care what Taylor Rapp is getting. Give me Javon Holland and Malachi Starks. But yeah, like so much of it obviously will depend on free agency, right? Like if they made a move at safety already, or if they haven't done anything on defensive line, I think defensive line is the bigger need just as the team currently stands. I'd rather go in with Rapp and Bishop than with the defensive line where it is. You literally need to address the defensive line. But man, yeah, once you get to 20, actually past 15, but once you get to 20, if Starks is there, I'm sweating just because I think the fit for the Bills is so top notch.
You have to go try it. At least make a phone call.
Yes.
You might not have to get him, but at least make a phone call.
I need the proof. I need Brandon Beane showing his phone and being like, here's my call log. I called
these teams. We want messages. We want the messages released.
I need the receipts.
With Emenwari, Bruce Feldman had him number 1 on his freaks list in the offseason. He said that Emenwari was running a 4.35.
Oh my God. At what, 6'3", 228?
At 228. So if he runs 4.35 again at 228 this week, he's not going to be there at 29, 28.
I hope he does. I love him as a player. Again, shout out to 2024 national champion South Carolina Gamecocks in my universe. Then we almost repeated in year 2. I'm not going to talk about how we didn't because I'm still pissed about it. Had a good recruiting class though. Year 3 was much better, but I can't. I'll go into a tangent forever here. Yeah, I like him in Warrior. I just think the fit for the Bills, honestly, I wouldn't even be too opposed because he's so awesome. But yeah, I hope he tests out of this world, and I hope he gets himself, good contract. And if Malachi Starks falls, oh man, give me that gobble gobble. Oh man, there's too many guys I like, and this is what's even more so. Like, there's so many guys I like that could fall to 30 for the Bills, and I'm just waiting for them to not take any of them and take I'm trying to figure out what I would hate, but just take something where I'm like, really? I don't even want to put it out there. I'm not going to give any specifics because I'm so superstitious. All right. The last piece or anything else on safety before we move on to our last segment?
No.
All right. Wide receiver. I think this is a sneaky one for the Bills, kind of, maybe not potentially. It's kind of like a priority, but not necessarily a priority. But so much of it, they just re-upped Khalil Shakir today, 4 years, $60 million, $32 million guaranteed. So much of this grouping is annoying because they need a true X or someone with some of those pieces or skill set, like traits, anything, any verbiage, however you want to label it. They need some of that, but they also need juice. They need a vertical element. They need somebody who can stretch the field, push over the top. It could be all in one person. It could be in multiple people. I think they have to piecemeal it together. My ideal wide receiver for them is Demarcus Robinson this year, just based off of what I think the cost will be and how he can fit in this team. You're still also kind of sitting on your Keon Coleman pick and wondering, what does year 2 look like for him? Can he be more of an X? Is he just going to be more of a power slot? How does he continue to develop as a route runner in terms of polish and all that stuff? I don't think receiver, based on the class and the need, is high enough to the point where they would go receiver in round 1, unless McMillan falls somehow or something crazy happens. Or honestly, I really like Emeka Ibuka, but I don't know if that's necessarily the fit or the call or the play there. So my thought here was kind of the day 3 / sleeper wide receivers to keep an eye on the combine, or you could go a different direction, however you feel. But, your thoughts on wide receiver in this combine, and then, particular day 3 or sleeper wide receivers to fit, because I think that's where the Bills could kind of go to address the wide receiver spot, like a round 4 pick or something like that.
This wide receiver class is it's interesting. It's
especially compared to last year's, which was just wild.
Last year's was incredible. like last year's had so many fun players, a lot of variety. This year, I don't think has the same level of top end talent. It depends on what you think of Travis Hunter. Like the Browns said this week that they see him as a receiver, and if you see him as a receiver, like okay, then that adds to that receiver class. But once you get past the top 4, 5 guys, there's a lot of projection, and unfortunately, with a lot of projection, there's also not a lot of speed.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of vertical bursts or explosiveness. So, and yeah, there's not a lot of X receivers in this class. So, a few guys on day 3 that I think would make sense for the Bills. The first one's Ty Felton from Maryland.
Nice.
Got some juice. I got enough juice to win, I think, on the outside. He operates best from the slot, so it might be a little weird with Shakir also operating there, but create separation, can get vertical very quickly, and he truly was like a saint this season because Maryland had some of the worst quarterback play I think I've ever seen. So Felton's one of those guys I think will make a lot of sense. Pat Bryant from Illinois is a guy that I like. I don't think he's truly that fast, but he's a smooth guy. Can create separation. He wins in contested catch situations. Again, Illinois' quarterback situation better than Maryland's, but not fantastic.
But still not good.
Yeah, still not that great. I love Pat Bryant. I think he's going to be a really nice like day 3 guy if you want somebody who can win on the outside. And maybe like he's a little similar to Xavier Hutchinson for me. Where like I think he can win with separation, maybe some contested catch ability on the outside, not overly explosive or vertical. But I think he can win in those situations. LeJontay Wester is my guy from Colorado.
Okay.
He is maybe going to be like 170 at the combine, maybe, and that's generous. I think they listed him at Colorado listed him at 177 on their website, and I'm like, you all are liars.
You added 10 pounds, like
yeah, there's no way Travis Hunter is 185 and LeJontay Wester is 177. Somebody here is lying, but he creates instant separation from the slot. He is a slot only guy, but creates so much instant separation at the he can get downfield, second and third level guy, and he's also going to be one of the best special teamers in this draft class. Return punts for touchdowns at both FAU and Colorado. Instant explosive guy. You want somebody who can bring you juice. Again, a little bit of a slot only guy, but if you want somebody to bring some verticality, some explosiveness to the offense, I think he kind of fits that. I wonder if he's a little similar to like John Brown in what John Brown did for the Bills in terms of being that downfield guy. But I think Wester would make sense in a limited role. And then I also think the same about Ricky White, the third from UNLV.
Oh, UNLV. Nice.
Ricky White, the third, just gets open. He is a professional get opener. He's gonna win in a lot of ways. And he also blocked 4 punts at UNLV. I think he blocked 4 punts this season at UNLV. Like he was one of the best special teamers in America. And I think Sean McDermott's going to appreciate that a lot, but also appreciate that ability to create separation quickly. So I was like Ja'Cory Brooks from Louisville is a really good shout here in terms of the separation and getting downfield. But this class really doesn't have a lot of that in terms of outside guys, especially because, like you said, Shakir is going to be the slot receiver in Buffalo for the near future. And for the future, there's not a lot of outside guys who can give you that explosiveness.
Oh, I like that. I'm trying to go with, I like Ricky White. That's a good call. I'm just going to stick with, well, it kind of depends. I'm going to go with Torrey Horton. It's kind of like been my initiative. Yeah. Like I I want to see how he continues to kind of go forward, coming off the injury and what this season looked like for him just in general. But the productivity at Colorado State in 2023 and in 2022, it's there. And I just think what he is, how he can operate on the outside, I think he's got a lot of plus traits in the areas that the Bills need, like the athleticism, the speed. I think he's got a good feel for route running, and then he's got good hands. He's got some burst to him. I just think he ticks a lot of the boxes that they need in one type of player that you can bring along, where he doesn't need to come in day one and be like a huge answer. Like, you can let him be a piece to the puzzle. He's got a little bit of everything. I think he's got enough size. He's got enough speed, playmaking, the toughness. He can return punts for you. Like, there's just a lot of boxes that he ticks, I think, from a juice and athleticism and technicality standpoint, release standpoint, like what he can do. I think he's, again, for a team that I think signs one, probably two. I think they bring back Matt Collins, and then I think they sign another free agent wide receiver. I just keep coming back to Torrey Horton and the productivity and the flashes of what he can be and what he has. Again, not a ton of tape this year because of the injury, but the 2023 tape and the 2022 tape, how productive he was statistically, the tape, and then some of what he showed this year. Again, I think he ticks a lot of the boxes from add to the basketball lineup that they have at wide receiver. Torrey Horton is a big, again, you mentioned several of the dudes. We continue to do this dance in this one. I'll mention a lot of the similar points, but Torrey Horton is one who I continue to have my eye on, like, with regularity. And I just feel like somewhere in that, because they don't have a third round pick, somewhere in round 4, if they needed to, depending on how he tests or what he does, but round 4, round 5, like that's a person who I continue to keep my eye on with regularity. Just got to how many boxes I think he can tick for this team.
Yeah, I think Horton is another one of those guys, like you said, who fills a lot of needs, fills a lot of roles. I wonder if he tests at all because of the knee injury, but I also wonder how explosive he is. Can he be sort of that downfield guy that the Bills need? Can he create that separation? I think he's able to, but I wonder if he's more of the power slot guy. If you want who's willing to block, but can create more separation from the inside rather than on an island against a team's best corner. Can he do that consistently? I think another guy that kind of fits that. I don't think he's a day 3 guy, but in terms of guys that I think would fit what the Bills like is Elic Iomanner from Stanford.
Oh, from Stanford.
Another one of my guys. I mean, Stanford would have him lining up tight and like blocking the hell out of safeties on duo. You think of the stuff that Matt Collins did in Buffalo. Elic Iomanner was doing it at Stanford, but I think Iomanner offers a lot of finesse and a lot of quick separation that I think could really be useful. And when we talk about the Bills' offense, they want to have guys who can tie some of the stuff together. Matt Collins was great, but I think Matt Collins is also a little bit limited in what he can do. Iomanner can do the blocking stuff, but also create separation in the quick game and in quick areas of the field. So I wonder, again, no third round pick, but Iomanner is a guy that I think is sort of in the style of what they want in receiver, opposite of the power forward they have, Keon Coleman.
I like that. So much about this wide receiver room, and I just look, and then I'm like, I think he's going to be an outlier in so many ways, but I'm just so desperate for juice. I'm like, Tez Johnson, do it, wherever he is. Just give me speed and juice and electricity.
He might be a strong gust of wind in Highmark might take him away.
Just swoop him.
It might be a Mary Poppins situation where he just flies up out of the stadium. But again, the juice is something that I think stands out. Jalen Noel from Iowa State.
Oh, yeah.
A smaller guy, but again, has the juice. So I wonder, like you said, do the Bills go away from trying to find that outside receiver to going to a guy that just has some speed?
Yeah.
Because like the outside guys aren't really that fast this year. Like, you don't have a lot of
like, they just need something with. I like Jalen Noel a good amount. Like, I just think. And again, I don't want to go like too much of a slot type and yada yada. I know they need some size and they got to have everything and they need to be able to block and all these things, but I think this group just needs juice for a team that has Curtis Samuel. I just don't and I said this last year when they signed him. for as much as Curtis Samuel like ran a 4.3 coming out of Ohio State, I just don't think he plays like a juiced up player. Like, I don't think he plays like a 4.38 kind of guy. And even if he does, it's more straight line speed. He's not this shifty, make you miss in a phone booth type of guy. And I'm just desperate for juice, athleticism, start ability, some kind of something to just diversify this wide receiver room. And I will take it in kind of any form or fashion, but it's just, and again, I know they're going to address a lot of things in free agency, but you just have to look at the defensive side of the ball first before I think you even get to wide receiver, which makes wide receiver even like more annoying. And then if you also tie in the Dalton Kincaid trajectory and timeline, it's annoying. There's just like so many things on the offensive side of the ball that's like need a little tweaks, but are also annoying to do so. Yeah, the wide receiver piece, I think, kind of just absolutely falls into that 100%. JP, any thoughts? Before I thought we would go a little shorter tonight. I was foolish and stupid. Any final thoughts before I let you
go? Just some thoughts on the combine. When you watch the combine, watch the hips. A lot of the running, it's fine. You know, if a guy runs fast on tape, you'll know that he runs fast at the combine. If a guy runs slow on tape, probably not going to run fast at the combine. But watch how they change with the stimuli of changing the hips, change of direction. Watch how explosive they are, because those are really kind of what determines some of the elite players at the NFL level. Not everybody can be DK Metcalf, who had a slow 3-cone, but is one of the most physically imposing prospects I think we've ever seen in the position. Watch the hips, watch the explosives, and don't take too much from the combine. This is the Underwear Olympics. It should be used as validation and confirmation of what you saw on tape.
I like that. Very well said. I got to pull up a comment because I think this is true. Kay Mori said, did we go a full episode without an anime reference? Unacceptable. I think we did. I think we did.
That's a shame. I can't believe I messed that up. You know,
give us one player that you think comps. Give her some anime comp reference. We got to do it. I can't let you go.
Ooh, okay. So this is actually great because after the combine, we have the official NFL comparisons that have nothing to do with football. An example of this would be Tyler Booker, the Alabama guard, being compared to Mark Henry. But when it comes to anime comparisons and NFL draft prospects, I'm going to go Travis Hunter to Soul from Soul Eater. He can be anything. You know, with the right wielder in hand, he can become anything. If you play him on defense, he can become one of the best corners in the league. You play him on offense, he could become a very good wide receiver. But it all depends on the power of the Meister or the coach that gets a hold of him.
I like that. Very well said. I love how you're able to just weave in and out with that. What was like maybe 2 off seasons ago? I think I did a like NFL players, or I don't remember if it was quarterbacks, like comparison to Dragon Ball Z characters. And I said Josh Allen was Cell because Cell was this combination of all these like different fighting style, all the best fighting styles and traits from all these like other guys. And I was like, Allen is this combination of all these different skill sets and pieces in one guy. And I got so many people Bills fans who came at me like, no, he's Goku. No, he's Broly. No, they're just those two back and forth. And I was so annoyed. I had it got a good amount of traction from retweets and likes, but I had 70 comments and 55 of them were just like, no, he's Goku. No, he's Broly. No, he's Goku. And I was like, all right, this isn't fun anymore. Like I'm never doing this again.
Fun. Like the fun ends when you compare Joe Burrow to Tien very validly. and then Bengals fans like, what are you talking about? It's like, come on, man.
Tien sucks. That can't be my quarterback.
Like, keep up. Let me cook here. I promise there's a method here.
You need what is it? I think it's the meme. I think it's like Woody, I think from Kingdom Hearts with the hold up, let him cook. Like that's what you need. JP, exactly you were awesome as always. Always a tremendous guest. Just in case people at this point, which they should, don't know who you are, don't know what you do, all that kind of stuff. Hold on. Yes, I did. I did say he was perfect Cell, and people still came at me, Claude. This is a very good question. Thank you very much.
Perfect Cell is awesome. Like
that's what I said.
He was one of the most intimidating villains in the Dragon Ball Z saga.
Yes, and I was like, and that's my favorite arc. Like even though I wanted Vegeta to be the one to defeat Cell, and they made him look like a fool by letting him get to perfect Cell and then still losing, even though, but of course he gets to help Gohan in the end, blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, I clarified perfect Cell and people were still very angry, but it's Twitter. So maybe I should repost it on.
Nobody actually went and watched the Cell saga,
That's
which
fair.
you should. That is one of the most incredible anime sagas of all.
Oh my God. Yeah, it like shaped my whole youth. Me and my friends were locked into just like, and then it solidified Gohan. Gohan gets his WrestleMania moment. Man,
the amount of times I listened to Gohan's theme of the father-son Kamehameha against Cell is obscene at this point.
That's it's gratuitous. Yeah, it's just it's so good. Yeah. But you know what, maybe, I don't know, maybe I got caught into the Twitter toxicity. Maybe I should find that tweet and post it to Blue Sky, and maybe it'll get more traction and love.
That's right.
With how things
more anime fans over on Blue Sky.
Yeah, a little more kindness too. All right. I said it, and then we went down and got sidetracked. Plug anything and everything you got. You're awesome. I appreciate you joining me again for the umpteenth time. Just in case people don't know who you are, tell them where they can find your work, what you got going on, anything and everything. You're awesome. The floor is yours.
I am the football writer at SB Nation. So that means anywhere where there's football being played, I'm probably talking about it. Specializing in the NFL draft. This is kind of what I do. So I'm excited to get back into it. You can find me on social media at Acosta32JP on Blue Sky, at Acosta32_JP on Twitter. And I also have a big board, my first top 50 big board coming out tomorrow. You should go read that. Of course, it is the perfect big board. There are no notes. There is nothing that you should be able to disagree with because everything I say is correct. Obviously not, but would love if you go check it out. I'm also going to be posting more stuff, draft content to TikTok on SB Nation's social media page. So go follow that. I have a pretty fun one about Shamar Stewart coming out tomorrow. So just make sure to follow, see what I'm doing, and see where I'm going.
You're awesome. Like I say every single time you join me, I pivoted with kind of some last minute things and things I was doing for the week, and you were available, and I was pumped as hell. If we weren't able to kind of do this episode, I probably would have pivoted to something else to get you back on ASAP. And again, every time you come through, you're awesome. Your insight, your humor. We see things so much alike. This was awesome as always. I will probably, like I say this every single time, I will DM you after to say all of these things again in written form because I appreciate you as a person and as a content creator and writer. And yeah, I thought this one would be a little shorter tonight, but again, I'm dumb. 152. I don't know why I even thought. It's just kind of par for the course at this point, which is also awesome that you're always
the average for us.
That's fair. Yeah. I also am very appreciative that you're just like willing to accept that. And you're always just like, yeah, whatever, however long we go is however long we go. Yeah, you're awesome.
We're talking ball, I could do this all day. That's what Captain America says. I could do this all day.
So, man, if at some point we need to do I don't know, with some charity episode, some kind of something, and we do a 24-hour marathon. If we just do football, wrestling, and anime, I feel like we really could get it done. And
oh my goodness, we could go back and watch some old wrestling pay-per-views.
Oh my god,
like that. I would love to go back and watch the 6-man Hell in a Cell with The Rock, Stone Cold. It was the ending
where Taker throws Rikishi off the top.
Yeah, it was the end of the Who ran over Stone Cold saga. I would love to go back and watch that.
I did it for The Rock. Yeah, the Armageddon Hell in the Cell. Yeah, good call. Yeah, there's a lot of potential here. I appreciate the hell out of you. You're awesome. Enjoy what's left of your Tuesday night, and I'll see you on social. And thank you again for joining me.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Godspeed. Mr. JP Acosta, tremendous guest, tremendous person, as always. Appreciate him stopping by and joining me here on the show. Wanted to bring up this graphic from our friends over there at BetUS. Little Matthew Stafford line and some betting odds going on here. If you folks haven't been keeping up with some NFL news, Matthew Stafford been given permission. As it shows in the graphic here, the Rams have granted Stafford permission to explore, going to other teams. Seems the Rams are kind of in somewhat of a little tear down, having to pay the piper a little bit when it comes to the cap and financials. So Stafford maybe going on his way out. Cup probably definitely going on his way out. And we got some team odds there for Matt Stafford. The Vikings at plus 200, the Giants at plus 300, the Raiders at plus 400, the Colts at plus 600. Oh, I could see the Raiders being a really good fit. just with the Vegas aspect and Pete Carroll, and then wanted to kind of attract something and kind of rejuvenate this team and kind of set them up on the right side of things. The Colts are really interesting. Like, are you giving up on Anthony Richardson? Are you staying in? Are you looking to kind of let him simmer a little bit? I feel like they jacked up his timeline, and then all the him tapping out and how that affected the locker room or the teammates. There's just all a lot of weird nonsense, I think, when it comes to Richardson. So I think the Colts are a sneaky good odd. The Vikings are an interesting one, being at plus 200. I guess it ties to what, McCarthy is in terms of health. But, obviously Stafford going from the McVay system to the O'Connell system would be a beautiful transition and a beautiful transfer. I think there's a lot of fun options here for Matthew Stafford. So if you folks feel free, put in the chat where you think Matt Stafford will land. Either way, this graphic presented again by our friends at BetUS. As I pull up some of my notes here, if you're looking for a new sports book this football season or any sports season, BetUS is your answer. Fastest payouts in the industry, a 150% bonus on your first deposit, and then a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. They give you a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process, 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year, live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business. They allow you to get 10% back on your net losses twice a year, and they can also give you your very own personal account manager. Check out BetUS for all of your sports book betting needs. And as Zach says in the chat here, the Vikings, isn't that giving up on JJ? Yeah, that's my first question too, but who knows? Maybe they know something that we don't. I like all the wrestling things that are coming through here. Appreciate all you folks. Yeah, thank you very much for joining me live. Also going to show some love to sponsor the show, One Pie Pizza. You folks know the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. And I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they are the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Great cheese to sauce ratio. Great way that they break up the toppings and sprinkle them evenly across the pizza and the pie. Cup and char pepperoni, homemade blue cheese, just a multitude of good stuff from them in terms of the pizza, in terms of the catering and the different kinds of mac and cheeses they do, but also the good that they do for the community in Buffalo. I say it all the time. Toys for Tots, partnering with the SPCA, the Alzheimer's Foundation, partnering with Roswell. They're really good people making really good food. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza, treat yourself and the family and the taste buds, and also do some good for the community while you're at it. Mention that Disguise Coverage and Cover One sent you. They also have a pizza that they named after the brand, which is awesome, and it's absolutely delicious. It's called the Cover One Allen Goat because it references Cover One and Josh Allen, and also there's goat cheese on it, and it's just amazing. There's a ton of different stuff. I say it every time. I don't just like to read the toppings off from the menu, but it's absolutely awesome. The online menu, contact information, all that stuff can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. Good follow-up from last week, Zach. Zach says, did you pitch that global franchise plan to One Pie yet? I did not. I'm putting it together with a PowerPoint and getting some metrics and some data. Want to make sure it's done right. So I'm going to get all the financials. I'm going to scope everything out and plan it, but I do like it. You start out small, dominate kind of Buffalo, then move to Rochester, get some Western New York fully, get some Central New York fully, expand into Canada, and then before you know it, it's just world domination and global domination. And then who knows, maybe we're moving into space, maybe we're moving into the moon. But in all seriousness, yeah, there needs to be more One Pie in a multitude of places and spots because it is that good. And I appreciate you continuing that for us here, Zach. That'll do it for us here on this episode of Disguise Coverage. This went longer than I thought, but it was a good time. JP is awesome. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on Blue Sky. Appreciate you folks tuning in. Before you leave, if you're watching live, please, and thank you. Drop a like on this video. If you are watching later, please drop a like here on this video on YouTube. Rate, review, subscribe on the podcasting apps or platforms. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show and this channel is and the brand is. If you thought this show was terrible, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day by making them watch this show. Turn on notifications for the Cover One playlist here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. I appreciate everybody who tuned in live. Thank you very much for your questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, all that stuff. Nub Animator, thank you very much for your super chat. Chris Godwin, I starred your comments, and obviously we did not get to them. That is horrible on me. That is sincerely my bad. Circle back around for the next episode. Ask them again. I will answer them. Or get at me on Twitter at pro__ant or Blue Sky pro ant, no underscores there with your same questions. I will answer them. I am sincerely sorry for missing those. And I literally started them and just did not get back to them. I apologize for that. Catch myself and Eric in the film room tomorrow. All that jazz, all that good stuff. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I'll see you when I see you. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.